A searing pain woke me up, an intense, stabbing ache in my arm that soaked the sheets with blood before I even fully realized what was happening. The world blurred as I sat up, clutching my arm, my mind racing to process the crimson flood and the jagged wound torn open in the dark. Who the hell? My heartbeat thundered in my ears, pounding out a frantic rhythm as I looked around in the suffocating silence of the night. My hands trembled uncontrollably, clutching the edge of the bed, trying to steady myself, but my mind was already unraveling. I never imagined I'd be the one to expose her. But last night, as I lay in bed, the sharp sting of betrayal pierced deeper than any nightmare. The faint whisper of her footsteps, the faint glint of a dagger's gleam, the cold realization that she paid someone to end my life while I slept. My trembling hand reached for my phone, trembling with a mix of fear and fury, ready to shatter the illusion of the woman I thought I knew. I had always trusted her, believed in us, but now that trust was shredded into bloody pieces. I stared at the glowing screen, trembling as I dialed the police, and whispered, "She paid someone to kill me. I'm bleeding, and I think she tried to finish me off." My voice cracked, thick with disbelief and rage. The dispatcher's calm voice seemed miles away as I clutched my arm tighter, feeling the warmth of blood oozing through my fingers. I wanted to scream, to shout, to wake the world up to this nightmare. Instead, I kept my voice steady, warning them to come fast before she could escape or silence me forever. While waiting, I pieced together fragments of her lies, how she'd been distant, secretive, avoiding me. And now, this brutal betrayal made sense. She had always been capable of deception, but I never suspected her to be capable of planning my death. My mind replayed every moment, every doubt I'd ignored, every time I brushed off her coldness as stress or exhaustion. I had been so blind, so trusting, and now I was bleeding and broken, knowing I was lucky to be alive, barely. When the police arrived, I kept my voice firm as I recounted everything, showing them the wounds, the messages, the strange interactions I'd brushed off. I told them about the mysterious calls she'd received, her nervous glances outside the window, her late-night absences. They searched our house, found the evidence I had secretly collected, a receipt with her name and a payment to a man I'd never met, a man she hired to stab me in my sleep, to end my life without a second thought. As the officers took her into custody, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. I turned her in, yes, but part of me wondered what else she might have planned, what other treacheries lurked beneath her calm facade. I knew this wasn't over. I had exposed her, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would linger forever. I looked down at my trembling hand, the gash still bleeding, and realized that the true battle had just begun, not just for justice, but for my very survival in a world where someone I loved could braid deception into my worst nightmare. As I stood there, trembling and breathless, the stark reality sank into my bones. My eyes darted across the dimly lit room, searching for any sign of further treachery. That's when I saw it, the blood on the wall. Bright, vivid, almost grotesque in the starkness of the white paint. And carved into it, jagged and uneven, were the words that shattered what little sense of safety I clung to. She tried to kill me. Distrust everything. A shiver ran down my spine as my mind reeled, trying to process what I was seeing. Blood, my blood, somehow smeared across the wall like a macabre message. I pressed my trembling hand against the cold surface, feeling the sticky warmth of it, as if it carried her dark intent in its very essence. How could she have gone this far? How many layers of deception had I missed? My heart hammered so loudly I was sure it echoed in my ears. Every instinct my body possessed screamed at me to run, to scream, to hide. But all I could do was stare, frozen, as the panic curled inside my chest like a furious beast. My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. How did she get in? How long had she been plotting this? Did she even think I'd find out? The words on the wall burned into my memory, searing into my consciousness with cruel clarity. I felt the sweat bead on my forehead, the cold sweat of terror and rage mixing into one. I looked around the room. Everything suddenly felt hostile, as if her betrayal had turned my sanctuary into a trap. I imagined her there, behind some corner, her calm, innocent facade hiding the darkness beneath. My breathing grew ragged, each inhale shallow and desperate. I instinctively reached for my phone again, my fingers trembling so badly I almost dropped it. I had to document this. Needed proof of her twisted ploy. I snapped a picture, but the sight of those words on the wall kept replaying in my mind, echoing with the sinister message she'd left behind. I wondered how long she'd planned this, how deep her lies went, and what her next move might be. As I stared at the message, I felt a cold dread settle in my stomach. It wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a declaration. She had tried to kill me, and now I knew the extent of her darkness. I clenched my fists, fighting back the overwhelming surge of panic. This was no longer about betrayal. It was about survival. I had to stay alert, keep my guard up, because if she'd gone this far, what else was she capable of? My mind spun with questions. Was there anyone else involved? Did she have accomplices lurking in the shadows? Could I trust anyone anymore? Even as I grappled with these thoughts, the blood on the wall seemed to pulse, as if it was alive with her malice. I knew I'd have to act fast to protect myself from whatever she had planned next. A shiver ran down my spine as I backed away from the wall, my eyes never leaving the ominous words. I realized I was no longer simply a victim of her betrayal. I was now a man standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the abyss. Her message had made it painfully clear she was capable of anything. Trust was shattered, and I had to decide whether I'd fight to survive or be consumed by the darkness she left behind. In that moment, I made a silent vow to myself. I would uncover the rest of her lies, expose her fully, and ensure that her deadly game didn't end with me as another casualty. Because if she was willing to paint her deadly message in blood, I knew I had to find the strength to confront her, to outsmart her, and to survive whatever final move she had planned. The bloodstained words on the wall weren't just a warning. They were a challenge, and I was determined to meet it. I blinked, trying to shake off the heavy fog of sleep, but an icy chill crept over me instead. As I slowly opened my eyes, the sight that greeted me was anything but comforting. There she was, Helena, lying beside me, her face unervingly serene, her expression utterly innocent. Her lips curved into a faint, almost hesitant smile, as if she was playing a part in a masquerade I no longer recognized. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing louder with suspicion and dread. How could she look so innocent after what I had uncovered? My mind spun with the images, her dark secrets, the blood-stained message on the wall, the shadows that had haunted me since last night. I could feel the tremor in my hand as I reached beneath the blanket, searching desperately for my phone, clutching it as if it were a lifeline. I wanted to believe she was innocent, but the weight of evidence pressed down on me, crushing any hope of denial. Helena shifted slightly, her face still imprinted with that sickening calmness, her eyes betraying nothing. I studied her, her seemingly perfect features, the way her eyelids fluttered as if she'd just been dreaming. But I saw through that illusion now. I saw the coldness lurking beneath, the poised mask of a predator. I kept my gaze locked on her, feeling every muscle tighten as I fought the rising tide of terror. Every instinct screamed at me that something was wrong, completely wrong. I pressed the phone screen and brought up the camera, the small lens capturing her face in stark detail. I zoomed in, desperate to find any sign of deception, any flicker of guilt. In that split second, her eyes flickered just a fraction, but enough to send my pulse racing. Was it a gesture of guilt, or simply her attempt to feign innocence? My hands trembled uncontrollably as I pressed record, the faint whir of the camera loud in the silent room. I needed proof that this woman, who was supposed to be my wife, was capable of murder. And then, her voice, soft, sweet, almost hypnotic, bored through the silence, shattering the fragile veneer of my certainty. "Good morning," she whispered, her tone perfectly normal, as if she hadn't just been lying next to me, plotting her next move. My mind raced to process her words, to decode the meaning behind her tone. Was this some sick game? A test? Or was she genuinely oblivious to the chaos I had uncovered? I couldn't tell. But one thing was crystal clear. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. It was a dangerous smile, a mask hiding a cold, calculating soul. I kept staring, paralyzed by the mixture of fear and fury swirling within me. Every rational thought clashed with the primal urge to protect myself, to break free from this nightmare she'd woven. I clenched my jaw, knowing that every second she kept that calm facade could be a lie, a prelude to her next move. Her hand suddenly brushed over my arm, slow and gentle, yet I could feel the weight of her touch like a stone. I didn't move, frozen in place, waiting for her next move, waiting to see if she would slip, and I knew she would, because I had seen too much to believe in innocence anymore. In that moment, I realized I was no longer just a victim of betrayal. I was a man fighting for his life, holding on to the fragile hope that I could expose her before she finished what she started. My mind raced to think, how do I turn this around? How do I unmask her lies? I knew then that I had to act fast. I had to gather evidence, to stay alert, and most importantly, to trust no one, not even the woman lying beside me. Because her smiling face was a lie, a carefully crafted illusion, and beneath it lurked a darkness I now feared more than anything. As I stared at her, my grip tightened on the phone. I had to be ready for whatever came next. Her innocent act wouldn't last forever. I could feel it, the subtle shifts, the unspoken threats in her eyes. I had to be prepared to confront her, to face whatever monstrous truth lay beneath her calm exterior. The room felt colder, the air thicker with deception. I knew I was running out of time. She was dangerous, more than I had ever imagined. And I had to decide, would I fall in her trap, or would I find a way to turn the tables? My pulse pounded loudly in my ears as I made my choice. I refused to be her victim any longer. I would fight. I would expose her lies. I would survive. I hurriedly unlocked my phone, my fingers trembling as I launched the browser and dove into the depths of my messages and call logs. Every tap felt deafening in the silence of the room, each second stretching endlessly as I searched for any clue, any slip-up she might have made. My eyes darted across the screen, scanning for any anomaly, any hint of the truth hidden behind her facade. Suddenly, I spotted it, a call log I hadn't paid much attention to before. My heart skipped a beat as I saw a number I didn't recognize, but what caught my eye was the timestamp. Late at night, right around the time I'd fallen into sleep. The curiosity pushed me further, and I tapped to see the details. But before I could even fully grasp what I was seeing, a familiar flicker of movement made me freeze. In the reflection of my screen, I caught a glimpse of her, standing just outside the doorway, watching me with that same unchanging, calculated smile. My stomach clenched. I could feel her presence like a predator waiting to pounce. I instinctively pressed the call log to hide it, but my mind was already racing. What was she hiding? What was she trying to erase? I scrolled even faster, desperate to find more evidence, more hints that could unravel her web of lies. That's when I noticed the deleted entry, one she swiftly erased with a swipe, but not before a fragment of the contact remained. It was a number she didn't recognize, but her immediate action to delete it screamed guilt. Why delete it so quickly? Was it a coincidence, or was it deliberate? My thumb hovered over the screen, heart pounding harder. I knew there was more beneath her calm exterior, something she desperately wanted to hide. The way she reacted to my discovery, quickly closing the app, acting as if she hadn't seen anything, only confirmed my suspicions. She was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what. My mind spun as I pieced together the fragments. This call, the deletion, her nervous glance when I looked over. It was a puzzle, and every piece pointed to a dark secret she desperately wanted concealed. I could almost hear her footsteps approaching again, the faintest whisper of her breath, and I knew I had to keep my composure. I had to stay one step ahead. In that moment, I realized the game had changed. I was no longer just a betrayed husband. I was now a seeker of the truth, risking everything to uncover her lies. The evidence was right there in my hand, yet I knew I needed more. I had to dig deeper, find more traces of her deception, because if I didn't, I was doomed to remain in the dark, forever blind to her true nature. I clenched my jaw, my mind racing with plans. I would follow that number. I would find out who she was contacting, what secrets she was hiding. The pieces were scattered, but I felt them pulling together, forming a pattern I could no longer ignore. My resolve hardened. I wouldn't let her slip away, not this time. As I stared at the screen, I knew this was only the beginning. That deleted call was the key, an opening to a labyrinth of lies, betrayal, and danger. I had to act fast. My life depended on it. Somewhere inside me, a fierce determination ignited, an unyielding promise to expose her, to bring the truth into the light, no matter the cost. Because I refused to remain her victim, not anymore. This was war, and I was ready to fight for my survival. I never imagined I'd be the one to expose her, but last night, as I lay in bed, the sharp sting of betrayal pierced deeper than any nightmare. The faint whisper of her footsteps, the faint glint of a dagger's gleam, the cold realization that she paid someone to end my life while I slept. My trembling hand reached for my phone, trembling with a mix of fear and fury, ready to shatter the illusion of the woman I thought I knew. As I laid there, my mind raced, unraveling the twisted web she had spun around us. I knew I had to dig deeper, beyond the surface of her lies, beyond the carefully constructed facade. That's when I remembered the hidden bank accounts she'd been secretly funneling money into, accounts I'd never known existed. The thought of it sent a shiver down my spine. I had to find out what she was hiding, what debts she was burying herself in, who she was paying off, and what she was willing to do to keep her secrets safe. I logged into the bank's encrypted portal, my fingers trembling as I keyed in the passwords I'd finally cracked. The screen flickered, revealing a series of accounts under aliases I had never encountered before. I blinked, trying to process what I was seeing. Payments to offshore accounts, transfers to shadowy entities, and, my stomach clenched, big sums sent to people with no obvious connection to her usual expenses. I scrolled through the transactions, each one a piece of a larger puzzle I desperately needed to assemble. There were debts, I realized, debts I'd never suspected, debts that went far beyond typical credit card bills or overdue loans. These were dark, obscure payments, large, untraceable sums that she had been secretly funneling away. And then I found it. A series of payments to individuals with names that sounded more like aliases than real people. Each one had a role I couldn't immediately decipher. Perhaps enforcers, or worse, people who could do her dirty work. I felt my jaw tighten as I stared at the screen, my mind racing to connect the dots. My heart pounded as I considered the implications. Had she been planning something even darker? Was she in debt to dangerous people? The thought made my stomach churn. I wondered how deep her web of lies stretched, what other secrets she was hiding behind these shadowy transactions. She had always been good at covering her tracks, but I was starting to see the cracks in her facade. Tiny, almost imperceptible, but enough to ignite a spark of suspicion that refused to die out. I copied some of the most suspicious transactions into a secure folder, knowing I'd need to analyze them further. I also flagged the accounts for further investigation, perhaps with the help of a private investigator I'd been considering. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. Her financial secrets were like a shadowy map leading to a dark, dangerous place. I could feel the weight of her deception pressing down on me, but I refused to back down. The realization hit me hard. This wasn't just about betrayal or lies anymore. It was about survival. I had to understand what she was hiding, what debt she owed, who she owed it to, and how far she was willing to go. Because if she was capable of paying someone to kill me, then I had to assume she was capable of anything. The stakes had never been higher, and I knew I couldn't stop now. Not until I uncovered every dark corner of her secret world. I closed the laptop slowly, my mind spinning with possibilities. I needed to move quickly before she caught wind of my investigation. I had to stay one step ahead. Every secret uncovered was another weapon in this brutal game of deception and survival. My feet felt rooted to the ground, but inside I was burning with resolve. I would expose her no matter what it took, because now I understood that her lies ran deeper than I had ever imagined, and I couldn't afford to look away. Not anymore. A surge of guilt washed over me as I replayed our recent arguments in my mind. Each harsh word, every pointed glare, they suddenly felt like warnings I had dismissed too casually. I questioned myself. Did I push her too far? Did my doubts, my accusations, contribute to this abyss she might have fallen into? Was I somehow deserving of the ferocity she unleashed? Or had I simply been naive for so long? The thought that I might have provoked, or at least failed to prevent, such a brutal attack haunted me deeply. I remembered her voice during those last conversations, sharp and cold, laced with frustration I had never truly acknowledged before. I had accused her of hiding things, of lying about small details, but never thought it would escalate to violence. And now, as I sat trembling in the dim glow of my phone screen, I wondered, could I have done something different? Should I have seen the signs? Or was this just her true nature, lurking beneath the surface all along, waiting for a trigger I had unknowingly provided? A hollow ache settled in my chest, as if my conscience had taken a punch I couldn't recover from. No matter how much I wanted to believe she was innocent, the horrifying truth of her betrayal refused to let me go. I had seen the evidence, uncovered her lies, and now I was haunted by the possibility that I had been blind to her darkness all along. Yet, in that moment, amid the chaos of my thoughts, I couldn't shake the feeling that perhaps I deserved some of this. Some reflection of my own shortcomings, some punishment for the doubts I'd kept buried beneath layers of denial. I clutched my chest, trying to slow the pounding of my heart, and wondered if my guilt was justified or just another form of self-punishment. I kept asking myself if, in some twisted way, I had invited this violence by questioning her, by doubting her, by not trusting her enough. Maybe these fights, these accusations, had sown seeds of rage so deep she saw no other option but to retaliate in the most brutal way. Could it be that I had, in some way, provoked her attack? Or was I merely a victim of her madness, caught in the crossfire of her desperation and delusion? As I stared at the dim ceiling, I realized that beneath my guilt lurked an even darker truth. I might never fully understand what drove her to this point, but I knew I couldn't let her actions define me or trap me in this guilt forever. This was not just about blame or regret. It was about survival, about exposing what she had done and ensuring she paid for it. Still, that gnawing feeling persisted. What if I was wrong? What if my own doubts, my suspicions, had somehow played a part in this nightmare? I closed my eyes tightly, trying to silence the chorus of questions echoing in my mind. Deep down, I knew I couldn't undo what had happened, but I could choose how to move forward by uncovering every secret, every lie, every dark motivation lurking beneath her smile. My mind was racing, pulling me in different directions, each path more dangerous than the last. Yet this guilt, this painful doubt, only reinforced my resolve. I would confront her lies, face the consequences, and finally understand whether I was a victim or somehow complicit. In the end, I realized that guilt, like everything else in this twisted game, was just another piece of her deception. And I would unravel it all, piece by piece. Because if she paid someone to end my life, then I had to believe she was capable of anything. And I had to be ready for whatever dark truth lay beneath her calculated exterior. With that thought, I pushed my doubts aside and prepared myself to dig even deeper, no matter how much it hurt, no matter how deeply I wondered if I was somehow, in some way, to blame. As I rummaged through the cluttered corner of the wardrobe, my fingers brushed against something unexpected, an old, dust-covered cassette tape. My heart thumped harder, each beat echoing the pounding in my ears. I hesitated, then carefully pried it out, noticing a faint, hastily scrawled label that read, Helena, Confidential. The air grew thick with anticipation and dread. I hesitated only a second before pressing the eject button, the tape whirring to life with a faint crackle. As I slid the cassette into my portable recorder, I felt a surge of adrenaline. My ears strained to catch the faint voices coming from the tiny speakers. At first, just muffled whispers, but gradually, words crystallized into something unmistakably clandestine. I pressed my ear closer, trying to decipher every syllable, every intonation. What I heard chilled me to the bone. There was Helena, her voice tense and trembling, but also with a hint of desperation, or was it cunning, talking to someone I didn't recognize. Their words were clipped, hurried. She was pleading, negotiating, perhaps even threatening. The voice on the other end sounded cold and commanding, with a tone that made my stomach turn. I caught phrases like "the job needs to be done tonight," "no mistakes this time," and "you'll get what's owed." My body stiffened. That voice wasn't just someone she was talking to. It was someone she hired. She was arranging a hit. My mind spun, trying to piece everything together. Had she already gone through with it? Had she paid someone to take me out while I slept? The implications sank deeper, threatening to crush me beneath their weight. I tightened my grip on the recorder, my knuckles white. I didn't want to believe it, yet every word confirmed my worst fears. Helena, my wife, my partner, was orchestrating my death. The sinister undertone in her voice, the way she negotiated like a seasoned criminal, told me she was capable of anything. And here I was, unknowingly, just another pawn in her game. The room felt colder, darker. My mind raced. How long had she been planning this? Did she think I was too blind to see it? Or was she confident enough to believe I would never find out? I pictured her smiling, convincing me that everything was fine, that her love was real. Meanwhile, she was plotting in the shadows. I pressed stop, my fingers trembling as I ejected the tape. My hands hovered over the device, reluctant to let go of the evidence that could shatter our lives. I knew I could never unhear what I just discovered. The pieces were falling into place, and suddenly, nothing felt safe anymore. Not her words, not her touch, not her love. My mind replayed the fragments, the secret meetings, the hurried whispers, the sinister tone, each one carving a deeper wound into my trust. I wondered how many lies I'd been fed, how many smiles masked her cold, calculating intentions. Was I ever truly safe? Or was this just another carefully crafted deception? Clutching the tape tightly, I felt a surge of resolve. I had to confront her, no matter the cost. I had to know if she was genuinely capable of ending my life, or if I had somehow misunderstood everything. The truth was buried beneath layers of her lies, and I was determined to excavate it, even if it meant destroying everything I held dear. This revelation was more than a betrayal. It was a threat to my very existence, and I knew I couldn't ignore it. I had to act fast. I had to prepare, because once I exposed this, once I understood the full extent of her darkness, there would be no turning back. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, she might be the greatest enemy I ever faced. And I was already entangled in her web of deceit, caught in a nightmare I could no longer deny. With the tape clutched tight in my hand, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. The silence of the room now carried the weight of 1,000 questions, and I was about to find the answers, no matter how much they hurt. As I examined the sheets more closely, my heart hammered in my chest. The faint streaks of blood were undeniable now, smeared across the fabric in irregular patterns that I couldn't dismiss as mere accidents. I pulled back the blankets carefully, trying to avoid disturbing the tainted fabric, yet the stains seemed to cling to every fiber, whispering stories I didn't want to hear. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what I saw. She insisted they were from a small cut, an accidental scratch from her gardening tools, she said, brushing it off with a nervous laugh. But the blood looked too fresh, too wild, like someone had fought, struggled. The edges of the stain were uneven, jagged almost, not the clean line of a cut from a dull knife or a minor injury from her usual mishaps. I pressed my fingers to the fabric, feeling the dampness seep through, cold and sticky. My paranoia swelled like a tidal wave. Was she lying again? Was this just another piece of her puzzle? Another lie meant to hide the truth? Or was it a sign that she'd really been in a fight, perhaps trying to cover her tracks? I didn't want to believe it, but everything in me screamed that I was witnessing something darker. The aftermath of struggle, not an innocent accident. I thought about the night before, how she had insisted she was just in the garden, trimming roses, and how her hands had looked clean, unblemished. Yet, her hurried movements, the way she avoided my gaze when I asked about her day, made me suspect she was hiding more than just her gardening mishaps. I remembered the trembling in her voice when she dismissed my questions, and my stomach twisted with suspicion. My fingers trembling, I pulled back the duvet, revealing more of the blood-stained sheets. A prickling sense of dread crawled up my spine as I noticed faint smudges near the pillow, as if someone had been lying there, fighting or bleeding out. The thought that she might have been in a physical altercation, that the blood on the sheets wasn't from an innocent scratch, haunted me relentlessly. I replayed her words from earlier that evening, trying to catch inconsistencies. She had claimed she'd fallen, tripped over the garden hose, she said, yet I knew her too well. She was meticulous, calculating. An injury like that would have been clean, controlled, not the mess I was now staring at. No, this looked like a struggle. Claw marks? Scratches? Or worse? My mind kept circling back to the possibility of her being involved in something much darker. Had she really fought someone? Was she trying to hide a fight that resulted in her bleeding? Or was she hiding something else entirely? Perhaps she'd paid someone to do her dirty work, to silence me permanently, and this blood was the aftermath of that violence. I clenched my fists, feeling the warmth of the blood still damp on the fabric, and my pulse pounded in my ears. Every instinct told me that I was right to be paranoid, that I needed to dig deeper, uncover the truth beneath her lies. I couldn't ignore the signs anymore, no matter how much I wanted to believe her innocence. Her casual dismissals, her nervous glances, the blood stains, they all painted a picture I refused to accept, yet couldn't deny. Now, each time I looked at the bloodied sheets, I felt a bitter chill crawl through my veins. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life, might be a stranger hiding her darkest secrets. I knew I had to act, to confront her again, to find out exactly what had happened in this bed, and what she was still hiding from me. As I sat there, staring at the blood-streaked fabric, I realized that every second that passed was a countdown to the truth. My paranoia wasn't unfounded. It was a warning. The signs were there, screaming silently, demanding I pay attention. I had to be ready to face whatever dark reality awaited me beyond her lies. Because once I unraveled this, once I knew the full extent of her deception, nothing would be the same again. And deep down, a part of me feared I might not want to know the truth. I stormed into the kitchen, my mind a whirlwind of rage, fear, and the gnawing suspicion that everything I believed about Helena was a fragile illusion ready to shatter. She was there, casually leaning against the counter, humming softly as if she hadn't just tried to end my life. And that ease, that unnatural calm, sent a cold shiver down my spine. The air between us felt thick, weighted down by unspoken truths. I clenched my fist so tightly that my nails pressed into my palms, bloodless yet burning with an intensity that matched the storm inside me. My eyes fixed on her, trying to read the slightest flicker of guilt or deception behind her composed facade. But her expression remained disturbingly placid, as if she was immune to the chaos she'd spun. I could feel my heartbeat pounding against my ribs, each thump echoing louder than the last. Every rational thought fought with the chaos of my instincts. I knew this was the moment. If I was going to uncover the depths of her lies, I had to push her, challenge her calmness. Helena, I finally managed, voice strained but steady. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? Did you think I'd never find out what you did? Her eyes flickered, just for a second, a flash of something unreadable, guilt, frustration, maybe even amusement. Then the smile she offered was serene, almost mocking. What are you talking about? You're imagining things. I took a step closer, feeling the heat of my anger rise. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean. I saw the blood on the sheets. I know you paid someone to stab me in my sleep. You thought I'd never figure it out, didn't you? that I just wake up, shrug it off, and accept your lies. Her face stayed composed, but her eyes darted away for a split second, betraying her. It was enough. The silence between us stretched painfully, filled with unspoken accusations and shattered trust. You've been lying to me from the start, I continued, voice trembling with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. All those nights you claimed you were working late, the secretive phone calls, the nervous glances, you were hiding something. And now I see it clearly. You paid someone to end my life, and I'm supposed to pretend I didn't notice. She took a slow step back, her hands smoothing down her apron as if to steady herself. Her voice was eerily calm when she responded. You're overthinking everything. You're imagining things. No, I interrupted sharply, my voice rising with every word. You paid someone. You tried to kill me, Helena, and I want to know why. I need to hear it from you, straight from your mouth. There was a flicker of something dark in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or the last remnants of her carefully constructed facade cracking apart. For a moment, I thought she might break, confess, or run. But instead, she simply looked at me, unshaken, as if her calmness was a shield built to withstand the storm I was unleashing. I could feel my hands trembling now, not just from rage, but from the realization that I was standing on the edge of a truth I'd never expected. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with my life. She was capable of orchestrating my death, and yet here she was still pretending innocence. The kitchen seemed to close in around us, the silence thick and suffocating. I wanted to tear her words apart, to demand the truth, to make her admit everything. But I also knew that once she spoke, once I uncovered the full extent of her deception, nothing could be the same. There would be no going back from this. My voice was barely a whisper when I finally said, Tell me why. Tell me why you did it. Or I swear, I'll find out in ways you never imagined. Her lips parted slightly, her eyes narrowing as she prepared her next move. I could see the faint glint of the dagger's reflection in her hand, hidden behind her back. She was prepared to lie, to deny, to keep her secrets safe. But I was no longer blind to the truth. I was ready to rip away her illusions, no matter what it cost me. Because I knew, deep inside, that this confrontation was just the beginning. The real battle. Finding out the full story, exposing her lies, and deciding whether I could forgive was only just starting. And I was determined, fiercely and painfully, to face whatever darkness lurked beneath her calm exterior. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the shadows I'd uncovered, the questions that refused to let me rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, still composed, almost serene, while I was drowning in chaos. I had to know the truth, no matter how dark or twisted it was. Dressing in the faint glow of dawn, I pulled on my jacket, slipped my phone into my pocket, and silently slipped out of the house. The streets were quiet, the kind of silence that presses heavily against your ears, makes your thoughts echo louder. I kept tabs on her for weeks, but tonight I needed to see her in action, see her secrets with my own eyes. I followed her from a distance, staying in the shadows, my heart pounding harder with each step. She moved with purpose, her silhouette sharp against the dim streetlights. We reached an abandoned alleyway that smelled of damp concrete and rust, the kind of place that seemed designed for secrets and betrayals. I flattened myself against the wall, peering around the corner. There she was, Helena, waiting. Her posture was tense, but her face betrayed nothing. Standing across from her was a man I'd never seen before, his features obscured by the darkness, but I could make out the quick exchange of a small package. My stomach clenched, the pieces clicked into place. I saw her hand slip something into his palm, and then they exchanged a few hurried words. Her voice was low, but I caught snippets, the payment, the job, the next step. My blood ran cold. My wife, the woman I loved, was actively conspiring to take my life, and she was paying someone to do it. I pressed further into the shadows, heart hammering against my ribs, trying to stay hidden but desperate to get closer. My mind spun with the implications. How deep her deception went, how many lies she had woven. Was this just a part of a larger plan? Could I trust anything about her anymore? Suddenly, she turned her head slightly, eyes scanning the alley. I froze, holding my breath as she looked in my direction, probably sensing someone nearby, or maybe just feeling the weight of her own guilt. For a heartbeat, our eyes locked across the distance. Her stare was cold, calculating, as if she knew I was there but decided to ignore me. I felt a mixture of fury and dread surge through me. I had to leave before she saw me, before she realized I was onto her. But I also couldn't stop myself from watching, every second revealing more of her treachery. My fists clenched as I watched her slip into the night, her steps eerily quiet against the cracked pavement. Back home, I was trembling all over, my mind racing through what I'd just seen. The woman I'd trusted, the woman I'd vowed to protect, was exchanging deadly promises in a dark alley. I knew I couldn't confront her yet, not until I had more proof, more clarity. But I also knew that this night marked the end of my innocence, the beginning of a war I had no idea how to fight. As I made my way back, my thoughts spiraled in every direction. If she was capable of this, the murder for hire, the deception, what else was she hiding? Could I save myself from her wrath? Or was I already too entangled in her web of lies? By the time I reached my doorstep, my hands were trembling uncontrollably. I stared at the door for a long moment, trying to steady my breath. I knew I had uncovered a truth that could destroy everything, but I also understood that revealing it would be the real battle. I was no longer just a man betrayed. I was a man who had to decide how much of himself he was willing to lose to find the truth. The room felt suddenly smaller, my chest tightening as I stared at the stranger standing before me. His eyes, haunted yet resolute, bore into mine like a dagger I could feel, more real than any blade I'd ever seen. He took a hesitant step forward, clutching his coat as if to shield himself from my shock. "She paid me," he said softly, voice trembling, "to stab you while you slept. Helena, she promised me a lot. Money, safety, a fresh start. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't go through with it, not really. I had to tell you the truth." His words hit me with the force of a wrecking ball, crumbling the fragile illusion I'd been clinging to since that night I caught her sneaking out. My mind spun, desperately grasping for coherence amid the chaos. Helena? Paying someone to end my life? The idea clawed at my insides, tearing apart everything I believed about her. I wanted to scream, to demand how she could be so monstrous, but my throat felt dry, my voice lost somewhere beneath the weight of betrayal. I looked at the man, trying to gauge whether he was lying, whether this was some sick game. But his eyes, those haunted, pleading eyes, held a truth I couldn't ignore. I noticed the trembling in his hands, the way his jaw clenched like he was fighting back tears. I felt a strange mix of anger, fear, and an almost overwhelming sense of numbness. The ground beneath my feet shifted, and I had to hold onto the wall to stay upright. "Why?" I managed to whisper, my voice cracking. "Why did she want me dead? What did I do to deserve that?" He hesitated, then looked away for a moment, as if gathering strength. "She said it was because of the money, because she thought you were threatening her, or maybe she just didn't want you to find out what she was really capable of. I don't know all the details. They paid me to do the deed, not to ask questions. But I couldn't follow through. I saw your face while I was supposed to do it, the fear in your eyes. I knew I couldn't be part of that." A cold shiver ran down my spine. The room seemed to grow darker, the walls closing in. My mind replayed her voice, her smile, her words that had once seemed so genuine. Every moment I'd spent with her, every promise she'd made, flashed before me like a sick joke. I took a step back, searching my mind for any sign that what he said was a lie. But he looked earnest, desperate even, and I sensed that he was telling the truth. The weight of this revelation pressed down on me like an unmovable stone. My knees felt weak, yet I clenched my fists tightly, trying to hold myself together. How long has she been capable of this? I asked, more to myself than to him. The tears I refused to shed threatened to spill over, but I clenched my jaw. I had to stay strong, had to process this chaos before I lost what was left of my sanity. He looked at me with a mix of pity and regret. I don't know everything, but I know she's not who you think she is. Whoever she was, that woman is gone. She's dangerous, and I think she's capable of anything. I stared past him, into the darkened corners of my mind, trying to piece together the fragments of my shattered world. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd trusted, she had paid someone to kill me. She had plotted my death, and I had been blind to it all along. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound, staining every memory I had of her. My hands trembled uncontrollably now, and I knew I couldn't stay here. Not anymore. I had to leave, had to find a way to protect myself from her wrath and from the lies she'd woven around us. My mind raced with plans, with questions, with fears that threatened to drown me. As I took my first step toward the door, the weight of this new truth bore down on my chest, making each breath harder to take. I couldn't trust her, not anymore. The woman I had sworn to protect me was a monster, a predator hiding behind a mask of love and deceit. And now, I was left with nothing but the shattered pieces of my world, desperately clinging to the hope that I could survive what was coming next. The weight of betrayal crushes my chest, forcing me into a turbulent storm of emotion I can't seem to escape. I sit alone in the darkness, replaying every moment of trust one once held for her, now twisted into a cruel, unrecognizable illusion. How could I have been so blind? Every gentle touch, every whispered word now feels like a calculated move in her wicked game. I close my eyes and see her face, the soft smile I cherished, the warmth of her embrace, transformed in my mind into a mask hiding the monster beneath. Was it ever real? Or was I just a pawn in her deadly game from the start? The memory of that night floods back, vivid and unrelenting. I remember the faint creak of the floorboards, her footsteps silent but deliberate. I'd been half asleep, vulnerable, trusting. What I didn't know was that she had paid someone to end my life while I was defenseless, lying there unaware. A wave of nausea washes over me, hot tears prickling behind my eyes, but I refuse to let them fall. The betrayal is too raw, too personal. It gnaws at my soul, tearing apart the fragile fabric of my sense of security. I had believed in her, had seen her as my partner, my confidant. Now I see the cold, calculating woman who orchestrated my death in her mind. My hand trembles as I clutch my phone, trembling with a cocktail of rage and fear. I want to scream, to shatter the silence that feels so oppressive, but instead, I steady my breath and unlock the screen. I need to see her face, her real face, one last time before I make my move. Every pixel feels like a dagger piercing through my resolve. The thoughts race. What else has she lied about? How many moments of my life were just illusions, carefully crafted to keep me blind? I think of the countless nights I trusted her, the secrets I shared, the plans we made for a future that, now I see, was never ours to begin with. Every second feels like a betrayal, every memory a lie. I imagine her behind her facade, her eyes cold and calculating, her smile a mask for the darkness within. Did she ever love me at all? Or was I just another obstacle to be eliminated once she saw her opportunity? The pain is so sharp, it's almost physical, a deep, gnawing ache in my core that refuses to fade. The betrayal has shattered my world, leaving me stranded in a sea of doubt and despair. I feel as if I am drowning in the aftermath of her deception. How could she have played me so well? How could I have missed the signs, the subtle hints of her true nature? Each question spirals into a vortex of rage and sorrow, threatening to consume me entirely. But beneath the chaos, a flicker of resolve ignites. I won't let her win. I can't. The realization that my entire life is a lie pushes me to act immediately. I need to expose her, to reveal her true face to the world, to clear the fog of her lies from my mind. I promise myself that I won't be her victim anymore. As I sit there, trembling, I know this moment marks a turning point. The illusion is shattered, and I am left with only the raw truth. I clutch my phone tighter, as if it's a lifeline, and prepare for the storm that's about to come. She may have paid someone to kill me, but she didn't know that I would uncover her darkest secrets. Now, I am awakening to the cold reality that I might never fully recover from this, but I will fight tooth and nail to reclaim my life, my trust, and my sanity. Because in the end, betrayal might have broken me, but I refuse to let it define me. I never imagined I'd be the one to expose her. But last night, as I lay in bed, the sharp sting of betrayal pierced deeper than any nightmare. The faint whisper of her footsteps, the faint glint of a dagger's gleam, the cold realization that she paid someone to end my life while I slept. My trembling hand reached for my phone, trembling with a mix of fear and fury, ready to shatter the illusion of the woman I thought I knew. I fumbled with the device, fingers trembling so violently I feared I might drop it. Every second felt like an eternity as I tried to steady my breath, to suppress the whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore, not after what I'd uncovered. The fact that she plotted my murder, that she paid someone to stab me in my sleep. It's a crime so heinous, so utterly depraved, that I couldn't let it slide into silence or denial. Justice had to be served, even if I had to chase it down myself. I took a deep, shuddering breath, my eyes fixed on the screen as I started typing a detailed account of everything I discovered. I knew I had to be precise, clear, leaving no room for doubt. I described how I'd intercepted a message on her phone, a conversation revealing the payment, the code words, the meeting place. I remembered the way her face had shifted when I confronted her earlier, that little flicker of guilt I'd dismissed as guilt. Now I saw it for what it was, a mask slipping, exposing her true intent. My hand hesitated for a moment as I considered whether to add every sordid detail. How I found a receipt in her email, how she'd paid cash to the unknown man, how her alibi crumbled under scrutiny. I knew this evidence was irrefutable, but still felt like a dagger stabbing my chest. Each word I typed was a step toward justice, but also a step into a nightmare I couldn't wake from. As I finished, I took a shaky breath and pressed send. The message to the authorities was now in motion. I knew I was risking everything, her wrath, her schemes, her ability to retaliate. But I couldn't live with her darkness lurking in the shadows. I had to be the one to bring it into the light. The weight of my decision pressed down on me, but a fragile sense of relief also took root, knowing that I was finally doing what I should have done from the start, fighting back, revealing her true face. I stared at the screen, my mind racing with possibilities. Would they believe me? Would they act quickly enough? I wasn't naive. She was cunning manipulative. She'd cover her tracks, silence my voice if she could. But I refused to be silenced anymore. My trembling hand still clutched my phone, and I whispered a silent vow. I would not let her destroy me. I'd face whatever came next, no matter how terrifying or uncertain, because I knew that the truth had to surface, and I had to be the one to bring it to light. A cold shiver ran down my spine as I considered the aftermath. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I'd seen her cracks, felt the subtle shifts in her demeanor, but I'd never truly grasped the extent of her darkness until last night. Now, I understood that I'd been living beside a predator, someone who could pay to have me silenced without a second thought. The idea that she could be capable of such brutality made my stomach churn, but also fueled my resolve. I had to act quickly, decisively, to prevent her from doing any more damage. As I sat there, trembling but determined, I realized I'd crossed a line. There was no turning back now. The truth was out, and I had done everything in my power to ensure justice would follow. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a testament to the chaos she had wrought, but also to my defiance. I owed it to myself to never let her darkness consume me entirely. This was the beginning of a fight I couldn't afford to lose, and I was ready. As I stepped into the sterile, unforgiving room of the police station, my heart pounds with a strange mixture of relief and dread. Helena stands across from me, her face an icy mask that somehow feels even more chilling in the fluorescent glow. She offers that calculated smile, the kind that sends a shiver down my spine because I know what lies beneath, something terrifyingly cold and manipulative. She's trying to act innocent, to minimize the gravity of her actions, but I can see through her facade. My hands stay clenched, steady, and unwavering, because I refuse to let her manipulate me even now. The officers ask her questions, and she responds with a voice cloaked in civility, a tone so measured that it almost feels rehearsed. I watch her, feeling the weight of every word she utters, knowing that she's attempting to blur the lines, to make her involvement seem like a minor misstep rather than the heinous crime it is. I can almost taste the metallic tang of the betrayal, thick in my mouth as I recall the cold, calculated way she paid someone to knife me in my sleep. The images flood back, her whispering promises, the faint rustle of money exchanging hands, the cruel anticipation in her eyes as she watched her plan unfold. My mind flashes to that night. How I had been so vulnerable, so unaware of the danger lurking just beyond my perception. I picture her sneaking around, her footsteps quiet but deliberate, her face devoid of remorse as she orchestrated my downfall. The realization that I had been living beside a monster, someone capable of pawning off violence like a pawn in her game, pushes a surge of anger through me. It's a strange sensation, part fury, part sorrow. I want to scream, to shout that she's a murderer, that she's a manipulator who would do anything for her own gain. But I keep my voice steady. Through the tense silence, I observe her carefully, try to read the subtle shifts in her expression, the way her eyes flicker, try to gauge if her deception is faltering. I know she's trying to sway the officers, to paint herself as the misunderstood victim, but I won't let her. I focus on my testimony, each word deliberate, precise, designed to cut through her lies. I recall the moment I first suspected something was wrong. The way her demeanor shifted when I questioned her, the hurried attempts to change the subject, the small inconsistencies in her stories. As I speak, I notice her smile faltering just slightly, a flicker of something else. Perhaps panic, perhaps realization that her web of lies is unraveling. I keep my voice firm, unwavering. I recount the details I've gathered, the conversations I overheard, the suspicious payments I uncovered in her bank statements. I describe her coldness, the way she dismissed my fears and tried to distract me, all the while plotting her escape from culpability. I refuse to let her minimize her crime because I know, deep down, that justice demands recognition of her guilt. Every word I speak feels like a blow to her carefully constructed facade. I see her eyes darting, searching for a way out, but I am resolute. My shoulders are square, my voice clear, because I am no longer the victim of her manipulations. I am the witness to her guilt. I feel the weight of truth pressing against my chest, and I know that this moment is vital. This is the culmination of my fight, the moment where her web of deception begins to crumble. As the police continue their questioning, I am consumed with a fierce determination. No matter the consequences, I will not let her silence me. Not this time. I have spoken. I have exposed her, and I know that her cold, calculated smile is a mask that can no longer hide the darkness beneath. I hold my ground, knowing that this is just the beginning. Her reckoning is coming, and I am the one holding the compass that points to her downfall. This isn't just about my survival anymore. It's about justice, about ensuring she can no longer hurt anyone else the way she almost hurt me. In the suffocating silence of her cell, I watch her struggle with a mask of feigned remorse. Her cheeks are slick with false tears, streams of emotion that don't reach her eyes. She sniffles softly, attempting to appear broken, but I see through it. I see the carefully crafted facade that shields her from the truth, her truth. The one she's desperately trying to rewrite now that the weight of her lies has finally caught up with her. She takes a shaky breath, her voice trembling just enough to sound genuine, and then begins to speak. Her words are rehearsed so many times I can almost hear the rehearsals echoing in her mind. It was all a mistake, she says, her voice dripping with fake sorrow. I didn't mean for it to come to this. Her hands tremble as she wipes her eyes, and I hold back the urge to scoff. I've heard that line before, in countless movies, in countless confessions. yet I know better. I've seen her in her rawest moments, and I know that this act, this so-called remorse, is just another layer of her manipulation. She claims she was afraid, that her back was against the wall, that her actions were born out of desperation. Her words tumble out, hurried and frantic, as if she's trying to convince herself more than me. She speaks of a dark chapter she wanted to close, of how she thought she could erase her past with a single, reckless act. I listen, my arms crossed, my gaze cold and unyielding. Every word she utters adds another thread to the web I've been unraveling, revealing the truth beneath her lies. But what truly catches my attention is the flicker of something else, faint, almost imperceptible. A flicker of genuine regret? Or perhaps the guilt of getting caught? It's hard to tell. What I do know is that her tears are not enough to wash away the stains of her sins. I see her trembling hands clutching her knees, her body racked with the silent weight of her shame, and I feel a strange mixture of triumph and disgust. As she continues, her voice cracks, and I notice her eyes darting nervously. She tries to speak softly, to make her words seem heartfelt, but I know her game. I've seen her manipulate, deceive, and lie for years. This confession, no matter how convincing it sounds, is just another piece of her puzzle, a desperate attempt to save her skin, to convince herself that she's still the victim here. Her story shifts, suddenly, to a somber reflection on her dark past, her supposed struggles with inner demons. She claims that her actions were driven by fear of facing her own history, her own darkness. She says she never intended to hurt me, that she was only trying to escape her past, not in my life. Her voice softens to a whisper, and I catch myself wondering if she truly believes her own words, or if she's just good at pretending. The tears continue to fall, more for show than for sincerity, and I feel a strange, bitter satisfaction. I realize that her confession is just another game, an elaborate dance to regain control of her narrative. But I also see the cracks beginning to show. The cracks I've been waiting for. The cracks that reveal her true face. The woman who thought she could manipulate her way out of this mess. Who thought her tears and lies could undo what has already been done. I stay silent for a long moment, letting her words hang in the air. I know she's trying to sell me her story, to make me believe in her remorse, but I refuse to buy it. I've seen the depths of her darkness, and I know the truth lurks beneath her tears. She's a master at masking her guilt, but her facade is crumbling. I can see it in her trembling hands, in her desperate eyes, in the flickering shadows behind her words. Finally, I speak, my voice calm but firm. You can cry all you want, but I've seen enough. I'll let the silence stretch between us, heavy with unspoken truths. You paid someone to end my life. That's not just a mistake, it's murder. And no tears can erase that. Her lips part, and she tries to compose herself again, but her voice falters. The bravado she had moments ago is gone, replaced by raw, unfiltered remorse. At least, that's what she wants me to believe. I know better. I've watched her manipulate everyone around her for so long, and I refuse to be fooled now. Her tears are just another layer of her deception, and I am done playing her game. As she finally breaks down completely, the tears coming freely now, not for her victims, but for herself, I realize that her confession is the final act of her attempt to rewrite her story. But her words, her tears, they are nothing but shadows, illusions crafted to shield her from the consequences she so desperately fears. I stand up, my heart pounding with a mixture of relief and disgust. Justice is a long road, and I know this is only the beginning. But walking out of that room, leaving her sobbing behind bars, I feel a strange sense of victory. The woman who tried to kill me, who thought she could erase her past with tears and lies, has finally revealed her true face. And I am the one who finally saw through her mask. As I sifted through the footage from our security cameras, a cold shiver ran down my spine. I had suspected something was off, but seeing it in black and white, her voice whispering over the faint crackle of the speaker, lips curling into a sinister smile, made my stomach turn. I pressed play again, watching her lean close to the screen, her words muffled but unmistakably sinister. There she was, clearly in conversation with someone I didn't recognize at first, but then the words cut through the static. It has to be done tonight. No mistakes this time. A pause, a hesitant breath. She's sleeping soundly. Nothing can go wrong. My heart hammered in my chest, each beat echoing 1,000 betrayals. I saw her nod, her face devoid of remorse, only cold determination. The scene replayed in my mind, haunting me. How long had she been planning this? Had she truly paid someone to end my life? My fingers clenched into fists, trembling not just from fear, but from an overwhelming tide of rage. The tears I had fought back earlier threatened to spill anew, but I swallowed them down with effort. That woman, a monster cloaked in the guise of my wife, had woven lies so thick I'd been blinded for years. I stared at the screen until the image blurred, eyes tracking every tiny movement, every whispered word. Her voice, now etched into my memory, was laced with cold resolve. She had orchestrated this entire nightmare, an elaborate dance, her steps choreographed with calculated precision. It was as if, in that moment, I saw her for what she truly was, a predator hiding behind a fragile mask of love. My mind raced to piece together the fragments. How many times had she lied? How many secrets did she hide behind that innocent facade? The betrayal was a dagger twisting deeper with each revelation. I felt the weight of the truth settle over me, heavy and unrelenting. It was no longer speculation. It was undeniable. She had paid someone to kill me, and I had just uncovered the proof I needed. My eyes darted around the room, searching for any other evidence, any sign that could crush her further. Then I remembered the hidden compartment in her bureau, an old, dusty drawer I'd never paid much attention to. With trembling hands, I opened it and found a small, battered USB drive tucked away between the clutter. My heart thudded harder as I plugged it into my laptop, the anticipation building like a storm ready to break. Files popped up, and I scrolled through them rapidly, heart pounding in my chest. There it was, another recording. I pressed play. Her voice again, lower this time, speaking softly with someone I now knew was the assassin. Her words were cold, calculating. I need him gone before the weekend. The insurance will cover everything, and no one will suspect a thing. The voice on the other end responded, a gravelly voice I recognized as the man who had tried to end my life. The rage and despair collided within me. I had trusted her, loved her, even believing in the woman I thought I knew. Now I saw her true face, cruel, manipulative, dangerous. I felt an ache deep in my chest, a mixture of sadness and fury, so intense I thought I might drown in it. How could she have been capable of this? How could I have been so blind? Tears threatened again, but I clenched my jaw, fighting them back. I needed to stay strong, to protect myself from the storm of betrayal I was experiencing. This evidence, these recordings, they weren't just proof of her treachery. They were the final pieces of a puzzle I'd been piecing together for years. As I sat there, clutching the drive tightly, the realization washed over me with brutal clarity. My life was forever changed. The woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, was a liar, a murderer. I knew that now. This was no longer about justice alone. It was about survival, about reclaiming the truth from the shadows she had cast over us. 1,000 questions swirled in my mind. How long had she been planning this? Did she ever love me? Or was I just another pawn in her twisted game? I stared at the flickering screen, feeling the cold weight of betrayal settle into my bones. The night had been a nightmare, but waking up to this reality was even worse. I knew I had to act fast. I couldn't let her slip away again, couldn't let her destroy more lives with her lies. I would take this evidence to the authorities, confront her with everything I had uncovered. But deep inside, a dark, icy resolve took hold. No matter what came next, I would never let her manipulate me again. No matter what, I had seen her true face now, and I would make sure the world saw it too. As I stared through the cold, sterile bars of her cell, my mind replayed every moment that led to this nightmare. The weight of her betrayal presses down on me like an anvil, crushing every shred of trust one once clung to. I never imagined I'd be the one to expose her, to see her true face behind the mask of the loving wife I had adored. Yet here I am, haunted by the memory of her footsteps in the dead of night, her whispered lies, and the gleam of the dagger she paid someone to thrust in my side while I lay unconscious. The irony twists sharp in my gut. She, the woman I had shared dreams with, had orchestrated my demise from the shadows. I recall the trembling of my hand as I clutched the evidence, the cold dread spiraling through me as I realized how deep her deception ran. She had woven a perfect facade, convincing everyone, even herself, that she was innocent. But the truth, raw and brutal, was finally laid bare in the recordings I unearthed. Her voice, cold and calculated, giving orders, paying off her assassin, laughing softly at the chaos she created. I had been a fool to think I knew her. Now, sitting in this grim cell, I feel the walls closing in, not just physically but emotionally. The betrayal has hollowed out my insides, leaving a hollow cavity where love once resided. I wonder if justice alone can heal these wounds, or if some damage is too profound to mend. Will the court of law be enough to erase the scars of her treachery? Or is this pain something I will carry forever, a permanent reminder of my naivety? Every fiber of my being screams for retribution, yet I also crave understanding. How did she hide this part of herself so well? Was she ever truly mine, or just a master of disguise? My mind races through tangled questions, each more unsettling than the last. Could I have seen the signs if I had looked harder? Did she ever truly love me? Or was I merely a pawn in her cruel game? Her betrayal isn't just a blow to my trust, but a blow to everything I believed in: truth, loyalty, love. I feel the bitter taste of regret rising in my throat, but I swallow it down. There's no room for weakness now. Her eyes, dark and unfaltering, meet mine as she sits silent in her own confinement. I wonder if she feels the weight of her actions, or if she's already planning her next move behind those cold walls. Does she regret what she's done, or does she thrive on the chaos she's created? Her silence is deafening, a stark contrast to the chaos of my thoughts. I think about the months I spent questioning, investigating, piecing together fragments of her lies. The late nights, the stolen glances, the gut feeling that something was wrong, but refusing to face the truth. My discovery was a slow awakening, a painful process that shattered everything I believed about her. It was in those quiet moments, with my trembling hands holding the evidence, her voice echoing in my mind, that I realized how carefully she had manipulated every aspect of our life. She had been planning this for a long time, orchestrating her escape, covering her tracks, all while I wallowed in ignorance. Now, as I sit here, I grapple with the emptiness inside. Justice is a fragile concept, especially when it's weighed against the wreckage of my heart. I wonder if the law can truly heal my fractured spirit, or if I will carry these scars to the grave. The betrayal has left a permanent stain on my soul, one that no conviction can erase. But I am determined, more than ever, to see her pay for this treachery, to ensure her lies cannot continue to destroy others. In some distant, hollow part of me, I hope that someday the truth will be enough to mend what's broken, that the scar she left behind will fade, replaced by the hard-won wisdom of survival. I hold on to that hope as I stare at her through the bars, knowing that her actions have irreparably changed everything. Justice may come, but the wounds she inflicted run deep, and I wonder if they will ever truly heal. I step out of the courthouse under a sky heavy with gray clouds, a weight pressing down on my chest that refuses to lift. The cold air bites at my skin, but it's nothing compared to the icy grip I feel inside, an ache that won't subside. Every step I take echoes in my mind, a relentless reminder of what I've uncovered, what I've endured. I am haunted by her face, the one I once trusted with every fiber of my being, now twisted into a mask of deceit. As I ignite my car, the ignition jolts me back to that night, how she watched me sleep with a calm that chilled me to the bone. The image of her slipping out the door, her coat pulled tight around her, a bag in her hand, her silent departure, replays in my head. I remember the messages I found on her phone, the secret conversations, the payments she made to a stranger who was supposed to end my life while I peacefully slumbered. The thought that she paid someone to stab me, to silence me forever, makes my stomach turn. I clutch the steering wheel tighter, forcing my mind to stay grounded. I recall the moment I confronted her, the accusatory words spilling out, the anger that finally burst free after months of doubt. Her face crumpled then, a mask cracking into something uglier. Fear, guilt, maybe a desperate attempt to hide her true self. I watched her desperation flicker across her eyes as I laid the evidence bare. Each document, each confession, like a dagger piercing my resolve. I still remember the police officer's voice as they read her rights, the cold professionalism in her eyes as she was led away. I felt numb then, but now the reality hits me harder. I had been naive, living in a bubble of false trust, believing in the woman I married. Now I see her for what she truly is, a master manipulator, a cold-blooded killer who had planned her escape all along. The courtroom was a blur of faces, but I saw her, her lips pressed into a thin line, her eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to scream, to shake her and demand answers, but my voice was lost beneath the overwhelming tide of betrayal. I watched her sentence unfold, each year a reminder of the life I lost, the love I thought was real. As I drive away from that place, I feel a strange mix of relief and despair. Relief that justice is being served, but despair knowing that I will never recover the years lost, the trust shattered into irreparable pieces. How could she have done this? How could someone I loved so deeply turn into such a monster? The question gnaws at me, but I have no answer, only the cold, brutal truth. Every memory I hold of her now is tainted. Her smile, once warm and inviting, now feels like a lie. The gentle touch I cherished has become a weapon, a prelude to her treachery. I wonder if I was ever truly blind, or if I simply refused to see what was lurking beneath her surface. The pain is sharp, a constant ache that I carry in my chest like a brand. I think about the countless nights I spent convincing myself that everything was fine, that she was my partner, my confidant. How many times did I ignore the subtle signs, the little cracks that hinted at her darker intentions? Now, I am left with a profound sense of loss, not just of a marriage, but of a future I will never have. I think of all the plans we made, the dreams we shared, now reduced to dust. A part of me hopes that someday she will regret what she's done, that the guilt will eat away at her from the inside. But I know better. She's cunning, capable of hiding her true self behind a facade of remorse if it suits her. The scars she's left are permanent, etched into my soul in ways I cannot undo. Still, I cling to the fragile hope that justice, in some form, will bring me closure, though I am painfully aware that the wounds are too deep for quick healing. I decide to drive away from the city, seeking anonymity, a place to breathe and let the storm inside me settle. I need to rebuild, to find a way forward despite this chaos. The road unwinds before me, a symbol of my journey, one I never expected to take, one I never wanted. Every mile I put between myself and her feels like a small victory, a step toward reclaiming what little peace I can find. As I look back briefly at the courthouse disappearing into the distance, I realize that I am forever changed. The betrayal has carved a permanent scar on my heart, and no matter how much time passes, some wounds will never fully heal. Yet I am determined. I vow to face whatever comes next, to forge a new path from the ashes of this nightmare. The past may haunt me, but I refuse to let it define me. I am still here, still fighting to rebuild what was broken, even if the shadows of betrayal will linger long after the courtroom doors close behind me.